All right, lads.
All right.
Matt, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes, good.
Welcome back.
Welcome to another episode of the Everyman Can podcast with me, Matt Sterland and Richie Andrew. Matt?
Yes?
Where have you been, Lord Lucan? No, listen.
I couldn't be bothered with these last week.
We found him, though.
It's just too much.
Unlike Lord Lucan.
This is all about mental strength and mental health, and I just had to take 2 weeks.
No, you didn't. So the funny part about that, Matt, is it's about mental strength, and obviously you had some family issues which you went and sorted, which we were supportive of you. But then now it's time to make a bit out of you. Cause
I'm good with that.
Is everything all right though?
Yeah, thanks.
No, is everything?
Yeah, all good. Honestly.
Good. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Sleep's not that important, is it, Matt?
No, I don't need sleep.
You can just
Sleep's
operate
delicious.
23 and a half hours a day.
No.
Crack on.
Hang on.
Go on.
He gets his sleep at work.
Oh, yeah.
Hurt that.
Night shifts.
Actually, you know what? I can't come back with that.
You can't? Because you do.
I was going to say about police and stuff.
When the weather's
but I'm
like
not gonna
this,
bother.
there's no fires to put out, is it?
No. Richie, I know we did a podcast on Tuesday, so a good couple of days.
No, it's been an amazing week. I've had this morning, obviously these Alan Johnson we interviewed previously trained us in NLP and IEMT and stuff, and I've done several appointments since, and every single one has had a massive shift. But I heard some bits and bobs about this 16-year-old girl I've been supporting, who's fantastic, low confidence, and I was just like, she's just amazing, and she just needed this bit. So I did these sessions with her, and I've been getting all this feedback off her mum.
Good.
And she's seen a massive. I did an hour and a half with her, and she's seen a massive shift. She's accessed counselling before and different things, and hasn't really helped. But this has had a massive shift.
Good.
Like in terms of how she sees herself in the world as well. And she's even been like assertive with her own dad, and like, well, if you're not, it's just all these little things you hear, and it's like. It just made me up. I was a bit emotional. So.
Well, I have to say, Rich, and I meant to say this on the last podcast, but obviously we got that embroiled with the two guests that I didn't. But since I've known you, this is probably the best I've seen you.
I am happy as Larry.
I know.
Absolutely happy.
I agree with that.
And it's infectious, because you are. But anyway.
Well, the best of any of us is infectious, and it's kindness, isn't it? Which, as we know, when you put it out there, it's times by 5, I think. Like you know what I mean? So you can be nasty, you can be horrible, and that spreads easy. But
Well, that was you when I first met you.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Thanks for rescuing me, Matt.
That's what I'm here for, rescuer.
Yeah. Well, you said some kind things the other day.
No, it's fine,
That
mate.
really hit me as well.
Good.
That was beautiful.
Wow, good.
How are you? How is
good.
Yeah.
New way in life and
Look at where we are.
starting off on a new journey employment-wise, which is tough, weird, strange.
Routine.
Yeah. Miss my dog.
I'm glad you're getting your clothes washed, though, because I'd let you know if you
Oh,
start
mate.
to stink up a place.
So, Matt, I was telling Rich,
Yeah, go on.
year and a half not working, a lot going on.
Yeah.
I'll do the washing. I'll get the
Wow.
daughter's food ready to go to York.
Things have changed.
Man. And now after route, I'm like, I need to get that ready tonight.
5 a.m. club.
So it's all that as well. It's like,
Yeah. Adjustment.
Come back
yeah.
there.
But
it's
no,
in a good way.
But well done.
good. Kids are great. Everything's great.
Good stuff.
Positive stuff. Shall we get going?
I think so.
Yeah, you need to talk about where we are.
Well, I will.
This is like your mecca. This.
Where
isn't it?
are we?
Do you not want to say yet? Do you want to come back to it in a sec?
I'll come back to it.
All right, that's 3.5 minutes of crap. We'll move on to the proper show now. All right, let's get started.
Hello, this is the Everyman Can podcast. Podcast based on mental strength, how we can use it in our everyday lives. Interviewing local people, using their experience, their wealth of experience through their personal journeys and their own professional journeys, how they use it for themselves, how they use it for other people, and hopefully you can take something from it. We hope you enjoy. Good to go.
Yeah, man.
Again, another episode of the Everyman Can podcast. And today, it is my mecca. We're at Kader Football Club in the heart of Middlesbrough, which I'm sure I know by all three of your reactions, you were quite surprised at the size of
Incredible.
the operation here. But this is like, so I've coached here for a lot of years. I'm the mental health champion for the whole club. That involves players.
God help them.
I send them back over.
Yeah, good on you. Good on you.
But no, so for the staff, the coaches, the players and stuff, so and a couple of people have reached out to me in the last couple of weeks, so that's good. But this place is like, I described it, I used to coach at another place which was a fantastic experience, but the facilities and the staff here make you feel like you're at like a grassroots, it's like a Premier League grassroots sort of club. And
Looking out the window here, the pitches. How many games can they all do?
some weekends there's 40 games on
40
grass.
games.
Then you've got the 3G, so the 3G will host 5-a-side, 7-a-side, 9-a-side, 11-a-side. So, and I know today the grass games are off because of the weather, but so I was talking to one of the managers earlier, and his kids under 14s teams normally morning, they've been pushed to 2 o'clock this afternoon onto the 3G. So, but no, it's fantastic, and we'll get on with Craig, who we're interviewing today, about grassroots and what it means to people, because grassroots sport for me in places like this for kids is not just about football. It's about life skills, teamwork, struggles. You're involved in teams from an early age with kids from all sorts of backgrounds, diversity, struggles, and I think it's just a fantastic hub for
first time I've been here
people.
and walking in this morning, Chris Hudson, into and very welcoming. Everyone's like dead kind of age straight away. Just walking in, just like felt very welcome straight away.
He's not so welcoming when you haven't paid your yellow card fines and he starts screaming.
I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, you've got to have your boundaries, haven't you? We talked about this.
I'm already at 2 for that. I got.
Yeah.
Should have got sent off yesterday, but I'll take the yellow 15 quid.
You're indebted to him, yeah.
So today we are interviewing Craig McManus. Craig, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Good.
Welsh, obviously.
So I met Craig back end of last year during a job interview, and it's become quite it's developing into a little friendship, I hope.
Absolutely, yeah.
And like-minded people.
It's cute, isn't it?
I have to say that he's my gaffer.
It's really cute.
Yeah. He's got some shit to come. Oh, he's got some stuff to come in.
I love him. I really like him. So, Craig, welcome.
Thank you.
Unfortunately for you, you're now part of the Every Man Can family, whether you like it or not. And your bio, which you sent me, and I've had a good look at you on LinkedIn and other news articles, a fascinating story. So football has always been a constant in your life. Age 6, you developed into grassroots, then into semi and then professional football in Scotland. And you say following some life changes, football was a mechanism to change your life for the better. You've captained Scotland at the Homeless World Cup and subsequently coached and managed England at 3 tournaments. You now use the power of football to create positive change, and you are currently the deputy head of the Middlesbrough Football Club Foundation. And I have read your LinkedIn, and you have worked in Edinburgh, London, and a lot of it is around street soccer Scotland and everything else. And we'll get into it a lot more as we go on, because your story, I don't know the full impact of your story, so it's going to be fascinating for me. But the first question we ask everyone, Craig, is what is mental strength to you?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me onto the podcast, and likewise, it's been great getting to know you over the last number of months, Matt, and just even the chats before the podcast. It's great to be around like-minded people, and
thanks, man.
we're on this mission of trying to improve, and create positive change through this wonderful game, or through the other mechanisms that we use. So
It's very kind to say. Do you take cash or cheque, by the way?
Both. But yeah, so thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here, and but one thing, I'm not an expert. I've got is lived experience. And so it comes about when you talk about mental strength. What does that mean? I think, to put some context into it, it's just like try to put some action in when things are not always going your way. So life can be really difficult, can be really challenging. But if I try and think of my experience, where I've tried to use mental strength, it's just trying to put one foot in front of the other and put some positive action in. Because we can talk about it, but unless you do, that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
So mental strength is having that ability in the darkest times to put one foot in front of the other and put some positive action in, which just through that kind of positive consequence makes change happen.
Absolutely. So I want to go back, Craig, to football with yourself.
Yep.
So you played semi-professional football, then into professional football. Can you talk to me about that journey, your age, and then what happened after the professional football?
Yeah, well, I was really lucky as a young person where, in Glasgow, football's it's like bread and butter. Everyone does it, doesn't it? You've got the 2 big clubs. I was brought up in the green side of the city, which is again a privilege, But so football in my family was a really constant. My brother played, my dad had played, everyone had played, and so a very young age I'm kicking a ball. But during my teenage years, I played in a team in Hamilton, a grassroots club, and it reminds me much of what we are here today. What a setup it is here, by the way. You know, it was called Mill United. You know, and loads of great players have come out of that. You know, you might not know them because they're Scottish players, but you know, but your Barry Fergusons, your Paul Hartleys, you know, these Roddy McKenzies, you know, loads of great players. You know, I was really fortunate to, you know, play with, you know, school teams that won Scottish Cups, boys clubs that won Scottish Cups. I represented my district, I represented my country. You know, well, I was on the bench when we played at Wembley, but for Scotland schoolboys. But you know, but there was a. So I was really fortunate to have these wonderful experiences, high successful experiences. You know, but then at the age of 17, I was, let's just say, at school, I was never someone that lived by the rules. You know, I was always kind of maybe a bit anti-authority in school. You know, I was, you know, but football kind of kept me on that pathway. You know, because the threat of losing, playing on a Saturday or playing on a Wednesday was always a thing that kind of kept me behaviour. But so what I'd done was, you know, I was playing, and unfortunately, never worked out for me at one school, and I was meant to be signing pro forms at Hamilton, and my dad wouldn't let me. You know, he's like, no, you need to stick in, you need to stay at school, and so you have to prove yourself. And then, you know, I'd done that, so I played with a couple of, traditionally what they call in Scotland junior teams, which are non-league teams, but then I signed my first pro contract when I was 17. Well, I say pro contract, I got 60 quid a week in a bus pass, so I don't know if that qualifies. It was called a zone card.
Really?
It got me around, I could travel anywhere in Glasgow, so what a perk. But it was, yeah, so that's what moved me into that area. But at 17 I was very raw, you know, but football was very, very different to what it's like today. You know, it was essentially what a YTS or apprenticeship would have been, you know, cleaning boots, painting things, picking up litter.
How it should be.
Yeah, you know, but was given that real level of work ethic to the game. But it was very different. But the wonderful kind of experience, you know, but there was a part of that during that experience where it was, we talk about mental strength, you know, football's kind of driven by fear sometimes, you know, and I was always remember being really fearful during that period because, you know, I don't think I ever relaxed as a young pro, you know, because always that over my head of I'm kind of, am I going to, how would I prove myself? Am I good enough? You know, and so I think unfortunately for me, not the mental strength I would have today was very different to what I was like when I was younger.
It's interesting that you said sports psychology, obviously one of the big things that's come into the game now. And you mentioned there, like, fear is actually a bit of a driver. And some of the things I've heard, I'm not very close to the football world, to be perfectly honest, but some of the things I've heard are much more about kind of getting them more relaxed and kind of like, you know, focused on their own game and their own health, their own well-being and all that kind of stuff. Is that some of the things you mean that have changed, maybe for the better or not?
Yeah, so it's changed. Football's definitely changed for the better. You know, it's more holistic. You know, it's more person-centred. Whereas back in the day, it was, you know, quite Machiavellian, I suppose. It was, you know, it was ultimately, you know, if you don't improve, if you're not good enough, you're not playing. You know, it was never, listen, let's try and improve you that way. You know, it was, we'll just bring someone else in. And I always remember pre-season, you used to come in and you sit at your peg in the changing room and, you know, you'd see people come in, you weren't sure who they were, and you'd be like, are they a left back? Are they a centre back? You know, are they going to come in and take my position?
Yeah.
You know, you knew that if you had a bad game, you didn't know if you would play again. You know, I remember I was playing for Scotland schoolboys under 15s against Northern Ireland in Largs, which is where all the Scottish performance teams play. And before the game, the manager told me, like, keep everything short, want a short game. And I was in a hole, you know, and I couldn't see anything, and I played a 30-yard pass and I get the hook straight away, you know, and I remember feeling at that point, you know, just like totally devastated. But it was, you know, now you'd look at it, you would say it was ego, you know, like I was embarrassed, you know, I was embarrassed that my family saw that, but it was more, and I never played again. You know, and unfortunately the two coaches were also the managers of the Glasgow district as well, so I never played with Glasgow again. You know, and
just for playing a 30-yard pass.
Yeah, but I don't think he fancied me, you know, and I think that it was an excuse, you know, and you know, there was a guy, Richie Green, who he played with Celtic. I was at Accies at the time. You know, the two of us were fighting over that for Scotland and for Richie and I ended up really good mates. There's no rivalry between us two, but there seemed to be, unfortunately, in Scotland, and probably similar in, you know, different locations throughout the UK, is if you played with Celtic, Rangers, Hearts and Hibs, you know, the boys were always slightly favoured. I was with a provincial small club where, and which ironically Hamilton Accies now are one of the highest, producing first team players in Europe. I think they were third after Ajax 2 years ago, And so I don't know if that's a financial thing or that's just brilliant coaching. And for my opinion, it's brilliant coaching. But so it's a really well known club, But unfortunately, there's always a kind of bias towards the bigger clubs in Scotland, and so Richie, great player. I thought I was better, but you always do as a player. But yeah, so after that 30-yard pass, it might have been longer to be fair, but I'll say 30-yard pass. But I was in a hole, couldn't see anything, dug it out, and get the hook straight away, and unfortunately never kicked a ball. So I think that was one of the first moments when I started to doubt myself, because everything else I took for granted. You play primary school, you play secondary school, you're winning cups, you're playing in tournaments in Holland, winning them, you're very popular in school because people think you're a footballer, there's a lot of falseness and, around that sort of stuff. But so it was, I think that was, if I really look back, that was kind of probably the start of my self-doubt, which plagued me right up until I was probably in my late 30s.
Just listening there, you mentioned certain key words. Do they trigger me? I don't know, but it resonates with me. That's one thing. Fear and self-doubt. So for me, I want to go back to the fear thing, and I understand that the whole football world and maybe years ago, I'm presuming it came from a hard manager that would give you effing and blinding and shouting at you, and I'm presuming that's where fear maybe come from in yourself, but also I think for me in any business, in just general life, fear massively holds you back. Yeah. And I just wondered, has fear now, fast forward to this day on, has that does it slip back into work? Does it slip back into normal everyday life for yourself, just for fear? Because for me it does.
Absolutely.
I hold back on certain things because of fear, from whether you call it trauma, whether you call it certain situations in sport, in life, your mum and dad shouting at you or whatever it may be. Does that jump back in for you?
Absolutely, 100%. But I'm really fortunate, on my journey I've been able to address these things on that journey. So, I know there's 1,000 forms of fear, but I can manage it today. But that doesn't, depends on my mental state, my positive mental health, the mechanisms or the things I do on a daily basis that keep me healthy. But when I drop them or I'm hungry, tired, whatever else, that these other things creep back in. Imposter syndrome all the time, I think I sometimes sit and work, I'm like, I'm going to get found out here. And I'm on here today and I'm like, oh no, what am I going to talk about? What have I got to add? And so, but I know today I can separate that. I know that's just, there's something in me that wants to kind of put me down at times, and I believe it's my ego. Sometimes I'm the best, sometimes I'm the worst, and I've just got to accept that's who I am. So they talk about acceptance being the answer, absolutely critical, isn't it? But absolutely fear is sometimes, it was a driver back in the day, but now it's more of a thing that I identify that it's not productive. I say we need fear, don't we? If we don't have fear, then we continue to make the same mistakes. But for me as an individual, I can separate that and I can see why fear can prevent me from moving forward.
I'm going to slightly disagree with that fear statement, but all I'm going to say is I'll probably just use a different word, as in looking at like your shadow, for example. Like, well, actually, what we've always got room to personally improve, grow in some way. And I think that gap between kind of where we perceive we are and where we need to be to fit our surroundings at that time is probably where that fear comes in. Yeah. But yeah, and that's you're probably right in a sense. But the reality is when you reflect and you have that wisdom in of kind of knowing that you're more than capable of actually looking at that issue, addressing it, finding solutions, talking to other people, sharing it, and perhaps if what's changed. You said late 30s, I think, when that dogged you, and I can relate to that fully. Yeah, definitely. So what was it? Did you not have the strategies in place to like reflect and go, actually, I'm not meant to be that perfection? What changed?
I suppose I can't avoid that the answer to that question. So I've had a very inconsistent relationship with alcohol and drugs for a number of years, and it brought me to my knees in my late 30s. I had hit multiple rock bottoms, during my journey, but when I was 39, I got to a point where it was a point of no return, and since that day, September the 7th, 2015, my life's get dramatically better because of the work I've done. So therefore I've started to investigate why I lived my life that sort of way, and now the answers have came, but that's why, I can't. I don't want to be defined by my life, and what it was like. I don't want to be defined as playing football. I don't want to be defined as having an addiction. I don't want to be defined as the consequences of that. I'm just trying to be a person that does my best on a daily basis. But the reality of that is my life, and I've also got a responsibility to talk about change and and try and be an advocate for that. But I think late 30s was a moment where I was shown. Someone once said to me, "You've been given a wonderful gift, the gift of desperation."
I agree with that, and I think because if you're happy to talk about that, I want to come back to that a little bit more. But I think mine was Christmas of 2021, and Richie was fully alongside me of this. And if it wasn't for my dog barking, who knows? But you do remember them days, and I think now I look back, I am grateful. I am accepting of things bad have happened, and it's dark, and it gives you a lot more perspective on life. My daughter's just walked in, and things like that like come into your life, and you think like, wow, how desperate was I? But I want to go back to, so you're playing professional football, and am I right, you bust your knee?
No, well,
or was it you did another 30-yard pass and that was you done?
I think it was, if I'd bust my knee, that was a better excuse. I think it was just, it got to the point where I picked up a couple of injuries, but nothing serious. But it did create a bit of inconsistency. But the bottom line, when I reflect back, lads, is I wasn't good enough, right? To make the game as a career. And I was very fortunate. I've got loads of great friends who were, as we're starting to progress into 1920, they're starting to play with Scotland under 21s. Boys are getting moves to England. We've got, I've got a mate who's starting to get picked up with the full national team, and I'm sitting in their company, and they're getting 5-figure signing on fees, and late high 5-figure signing on fees, and I'm sitting still trying to work out what bus I'm getting. So it started to dawn on me a lot that potentially I wasn't going to have a full-time career out of that. I kind of knew that. I kind of, and I think that causes the self-doubt digs in even further, when and you think, right, I just need to keep this mask on, I just need to keep working hard. And what I was very good at is being in the dressing room and being someone who was supporting my teammates and being around and always being positive, and but that was really draining, because that's not what I really felt. I was just like, as I say, going back to the forms of fear, I was like, am I good enough? Am I going to make the game? But it started to dawn me 18, 19. I started to go out on loan, to non-league clubs. I started to understand that was probably my level. And unfortunately, by the time I'm 21, 22, I knew it was over. Yeah.
So your journey to the 30, you mentioned alcohol and drugs, if you're happy to talk about that, and how that started, and so that journey from there to like where you are now, the mental strength you have to get to that point. So when you talk about your darkest days and the drink and the drugs and whatever else, I always find this fascinating that people at the time, did you realise then I need to make a change, but you found it really difficult to make that change, and you just kept probably using substances to mask that? Would that be correct?
There's a really poignant, there's loads of vivid moments in my life that I can remember where these things were happening. So I went to Teen Park, which is a festival in Scotland, and I came back and someone came to my door and said, "Listen, I'm going to take you an AA meeting." And I'm like, "What? What's wrong with you?"
You thought you were going to the pub.
You need someone to come along with you.
I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't need to go with that. And I was like, what is this? And I was like, well, just get my head down, just go, and obviously it's anonymous for a reason, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But, I went there and people were talking about not paying bills, blackouts, and, I'm like, I'm not there yet. That's not me. So I thought I was in denial essentially, but I just didn't know. you know, and so when you're in your early 20s, you know, but something must have sat and landed with me when I went to the meetings, you know, and so it was very later on in life it started to make sense, you know. But I've kind of, since the age of 21, I was fighting, I was trying to stop all the time, you know, but never letting anyone know, right. You know. I was because the consequences in your 20s, consequences are consequences, but they're never as severe. But the older you get, the larger consequences come. You know, it might have been, you know, your employer tells you, you know what no longer should be working there, you know, or, you know, your relationships break down, or, you know. But one of the biggest turning points, my mum died when I was 29. So my mum, you know, unfortunately, you know, passed away after a cancer. She was diagnosed with cancer. She passed away within 2 months. And my mum was always a person that would back me. You know, she didn't enable me. She backed me. You know, she would tell me the truth. She would, Craig, why are you doing this? You know, but she was always really honest with me, Mum.
Great question, by the way. Like just that one single question.
Yeah.
Asking yourself. That's what when I was coming to that fear question. It's really about semantics. You use the word fear. I might use something different. Doesn't matter. Yeah. But that, why are you doing this? And how many people in life actually ask themselves that question? Right? Yeah. Like you might be an autopilot going through your life, not noticing your own stuff that's going on, and then someone says to you that. Great. That's a fantastic question that we should ask ourselves more often.
Yeah, and I think, but what I kept doing was denying the answer. Right. You know, I was always like, because what I'd do is I'd mask it through materialistic stuff, right. Or I'd look at, you know, but I'm not like this connotation of, you know, what a drunk is, you know, on a park bench with, you know, drinking out a can, you know. I was never that. I was in nightclubs or driving a car and at a house, and so I was just always trying to use external to fix the internal, and it was really, really, you know, draining and damaging. And I think every day my soul was getting a little bit was getting broken off my soul, you know, and I think, you know, that ultimately led to the point where, I'm going to be honest, guys, I don't really remember much of my 30s, right. You know, and I've got moments of clarity where I was trying to get sober, but, you know, my 20s were partly, but 30s were different, but 30s were dark, you know, and, you know, and it built up to the point where, unfortunately, my dad passed away as well for cancer, you know, 10 years after my mum. Yeah, and it was just like, you know, it was one of the moments where I used to go and see my dad every day, and he was in a hospice, and me and my dad are really there was a weird relationship, I'd say, right, you know, but as we got older we started to connect more. So I used to go and see him every day. We'd been in the hospice, you know, I'd spend some time with him, we'd take him a wheelchair out for a cigarette, you know, but he knew he was dying, and I remember talking to him and kind of promising him that I was going to stop, and you know, and my dad would always get really kind of annoyed at me, you know. He'd be like, Craig, you've got so much potential, you're etc., and why are you doing this? Back to that question. But then he kind of just accepted me for who I was, you know. But that was the hardest thing, and I was always trying to live my life through my dad's values, you know, and you know, someone that I really loved. But when my dad passed away, I remember talking to him about it when, you know, when you get in and you can say your goodbyes. You know, my dad, he passed at this point, and it was just me in the room, and I kind of made him a promise that I would never drink or use again. You know, and literally 2 hours later I'm drinking and using, you know, and because I couldn't handle the pain, you know, and I think that's what addiction is, it's pain, you know, and the best way for me to mask that or escape from that was using substances. And so it took me up to a really dark place, and you know, and you know, I made a decision. It was kind of, you know, I was speaking to someone about this yesterday. I said to myself, right, I'm going to drink myself to death, or I'm going to kill myself. So the answer was death, you know, and you know, and it seemed really freeing when I said that to myself. You know, it was like I can get out of this, you know, because for the 20 years of my life, it was, even though they've got so many great memories, so many great examples of, you know, how I should be looking at the gratitude or the privileged part of my life. You know, it just felt like it was getting more and more painful, and it got to the point where I did firmly believe that, you know, people talk about it quite loosely, but I'd go to my bed praying I never woke up, and I'd wake up and I hated it.
Very glad you're here to be able to share that.
Yeah, but that's the difference, isn't it? You know, it's like it just takes a moment, you know, and it did take that moment. It took me looking at myself in the mirror one day and going, let's change, you know, and it sounds really, I know it sounds really simple and, you know, and really kind of silly, but there's something was telling me to go and eat, right? Go and get some food, right? So I went to Asda, but remember the pizzas you could make in Asda? I went and got my pizza, went back to my dad's house at the time, because at this point I'm sleeping rough. Well, I'm sleeping in a car, but I'm at court. My house has been taken off me. You know, I'm sleeping in the back of it was a Corsa I had, right? So it wasn't the most comfy for a guy 6'2". You know, it's sleeping in a car is really cold, by the way. That's another thing.
Why is it always a Corsa? That was the interview was a Corsa.
There must be
there might be a correlation between Vauxhall Corsas.
I'm so sorry, Vauxhall, if I'm cussing your Corsas, but
if only it was a Fiesta, damn it.
But that was it, and you know, I had that view, and that, honestly, there was, you know, I can't talk about spiritual experiences and all these sort of things. I'm not, but there was something happened. Something happened, you know.
People often get uncomfortable because of the religious implications of it, but we use that term. It's just like it's a connection to yourself, I think, and actually your essence in it. Like actually, and that question, why?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? But it doesn't become relevant until you ask that question yourself, because you look at your behaviours, look at the drivers, you go all the way back and go, what's actually going on here that's making me behave this way? You said it yourself, like the pain, especially bereavement's a very common one, especially for men, that loss and how to cope, especially in a society like this. And I mean, I sort of going to make an assumption, but like we have a British society is a bit like that. We don't really express ourselves very much. Scottish are a tough bunch as well, you know.
West of Scotland, you know, it was, you get battered if you, you know, that you get if you raised how you felt, you know, and you know, and that's how simple it is. You know, our culture was to not talk. Like, I'll give you, you know, even looking at my mum's passing, you know, it wasn't for mum and dad decided not to tell us. You know, because it was like they didn't want to upset us. We're like, you know, and eventually I'm like, no. Well, I went to the hospital. I said, if you don't tell us, I'm going to go to the consultant. I'm going to make so much noise until you're going to tell us. So it was that culture, you know, of, you know, it was like that children be seen and not heard. You know, then that discourages people being open and frank about conversation, and then ultimately you just, you know, there's that dynamic between parent-child dynamic, you know, rather than adult-to-adult dynamic. That's and it. You know, and I think that, you know, ultimately that was one of the reasons. And even today, I still struggle with it, you know, and like, you know, I still, you know, it takes a lot for me. Like in these environments, I feel really comfortable, you know, for some reason, you know, but when I'm in, you know, like if I'm having a bad day at work, I can feel the natural things where I want to isolate, I want to be on my own, I want to step away, I want to be. My mate calls it death by duvet, you know, just kind of like lying in bed and put the duvet over your head, you know, and that sort of stuff. But I know it's unhelpful. But yeah, get back to that moment in September. I was at court on the Friday. My house had been my flat had been taken off me. My car was going back on the Monday. I had to sleep rough that evening, you know, and I was like, what's happened? Mm-hmm. You know, and sometimes, you know, I said I was given that real blessing of having that experience, because today I can choose whether I want to go back there or not, you know, and I make that choice not to. So I have to do the things like this, talk, be open, you know, be transparent. But ultimately, when I look back on it, it's probably, ironically, without being flippant, it's probably the best day of my life.
Incredible.
Take a little break.
Let's do that.
We're just having a quick breather from the podcast. Just to let you know, you can find Every Man Can on all your normal social media platforms. You can also get this podcast and all of our other episodes wherever you get your podcasts from. All we ask, and this is the only thing we will ever ask of anybody, is that you like, share and follow everything that we do, because all we do this for is to help and inspire other people. Welcome back, Craig.
Thank you.
Thank you. Because I think a lot of what you've said resonated with me, and I think it doesn't matter whether you ended up sleeping rough, addiction, death, whatever it is, or everyone, no matter what journey you've been on, can relate to something in some way, and I relate a lot to that. And, you know, I've had a house taken off me in the past, not through stuff that's happened more recently, but just through, you know, marriage breakdown and stuff, and you do feel like, what on earth is going on here? And you know, and you think that everybody knows, everybody's looking at you, and really they're not. And I think it's really powerful what you've said there. So move it on.
Yep.
You now work for the MFC Foundation. You are the deputy head of the foundation, which is a fantastic. When you listen to what Craig was saying there to where you are now, I think, you know, when we talk about mental strength, I know you've worked in Edinburgh. Am I right in saying that Street Soccer Scotland gave you a chance?
Yeah.
And then your career. So just want to talk about now how you like pulled it back round, worked for them, London, now ultimately landed yourself in good old Teesside.
Yeah, of course. So and listen, I feel really privileged to be in Teesside, by the way. It reminds me so much of home, and my heart's landed here, and I'll talk more about that. But just what you mentioned there, and I know we're going to start talking about the positive, right? And this is what we're talking about. They don't call it houseless, they call it homeless, right? So think of the connotation of what home means.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so don't call it houseless, call it homeless. So think of the Christmases, think of the Christmas mornings, think of the, you know, experiences of birthdays. That's what home is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So when that gets taken away from you, it's not just bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
You know, so I read that what you're saying there really resonates, you know, and it's like, you know, it's a classic example of, you know, we use material things for, you know, to mask, you know, what is actually going on inside, and that was the biggest challenge for me when that get taken away from me, you know. Sorry, when through my choices, by the way, then that was the sort of thing that really impacted on me. It was the relationships and memories. So so I was sitting in a hostel. I was battling. I was really battling. I really wanted to get sober. You know, I really, really wanted to. And in Scotland, you know, I was really fortunate. You get a house within 24 hours. But unfortunately, I had no ID. So that took a bit longer, you know, to get actually in a B&B. You know, so I went into this B&B in Edinburgh, and I don't want to be disrespectful. I was really grateful for having a roof over my head and, you know, Rice Krispies in the morning. Do you know what I mean? But it was. You know, everyone's smoking crack and, you know, and asking me for what I had, you know, and it was really difficult because, you know, that wasn't my drug of choice, or you know, obviously alcohol was mainly my main thing, but it was really difficult to stay sober in that environment, you know, so I was trying to find any mechanism to get me out and about. So I was walking like 10 hours a day. I was just like doing loads of stuff. I actually wasn't allowed in the hostel during the day. I had to be out for 8:30 and I wasn't allowed, you know, and I was back in after 5, so I wasn't allowed to sit in my room. So anyway, I saw a flyer for Street Soccer Scotland, and it was in Portobello in Edinburgh, and I thought, what's this? I love football. What is it? And I'd heard of Street Soccer, but I wasn't really sure what they were. Football, charity, whatever else. So I just thought, right, let's go, you know. And one day I plucked up the courage. Well, it actually took me a couple of weeks, you know, because it was, you leave, you're like, oh no, it's not for me, or, you know, doubt kicks in and all the other things. So eventually I got there. And I remember getting there, and for weeks and weeks, everyone was always asking me loads of questions. Are you sober? Where are you living? What's going on? Just millions of questions all the time. And there's a gentleman called Andy Hook, who, you know, became a big part of my life. Andy, I walked on the pitch and Andy threw me a bib and went, on you go, mate, crack on. You know, and went, what's your name? I went, Craig. He went, there you go, Craig, mate, go and play. And for the first time I felt like a human, you know, and I was on this pitch with something I was really familiar with, and, you know, and I just felt part of something. It was instant. It's quite, you know, visceral. It was, you know, it was really, really instant. And you know, I started to, you know, go along there on a weekly basis. So what I would do is I was starting to measure myself a little bit more. So I was Tuesday and a Thursday I was going. So on a Monday night I'd drink probably less, and you know, I'd start to try to eat a little bit better. There was all these incremental 1% that started to happen in my life, and I didn't know it. And they helped me get into rehab. I went into rehab for 12 weeks, which was an experience in its own. We could split 5-hour podcast on that alone. But you know, that's where I started to see the true me, because I was in denial. They taught me what I was, you know, and
asking you all those difficult questions.
Yeah, but really understanding that, you know, because I didn't think I was your traditional, what people call an alcoholic addict. You know, I wasn't. I didn't steal. I didn't break the law. I didn't, you know, do all these things that people think that the addicts or alcoholics do. You know, I wasn't, you know, but they told me that I was.
Yeah,
I was just doing it a different way. you know, and reality and rigorous honesty is the best thing, isn't it? You know?
Can I just pick up on that very quick? Because I know we talked about trauma-informed and all these fancy terms, person-centred, but really what it comes down to, and I'm going to keep saying it, because the current system where it's set up is to look at what the problem is, what's going on, what's where you are right now, what symptoms have you got, rather than asking people what's happened to you. Yeah. And I think that's where it becomes an individual thing. And that sounds, I'm going to guess that's kind of what rehab started to do. Yeah. Really started to really uncover right from the start. Let's go back to childhood and listen, the journey since.
Absolutely. Things happened to me. Yeah. Right. And, you know, I was angry and, and I didn't understand. And now I've learned to forgive.
Fantastic.
You know, and that's what the mechanism was. I could see that these people were sick. You know, and that's the bottom line. Yep. You know, they were sick. You know, and what I could do is hold on to that resentment and be angry, or I can forgive them and move on.
I think Sorry, Richie.
No, mate.
And I know. I think forgiveness is it's something we talk about a lot, isn't it? And I think, you know, the last 3 years for me, I've had to really dig deep to like forgive for myself, you know, and no matter what people do to you, it's damaging, and what people have done to me is damaging, and that forgiveness side of things is a really powerful tool, because I forgive, I won't forget, I forgive, and sometimes it's, you look at it from like a holistic, I forgive and everyone's lovely, and it's not, because I'll be walking my dog and it still comes into my mind and I get angry with it and I think, why have you done that, and what? But then once you have forgive, that feeling goes a lot quicker.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a really beautiful, powerful thing to forgive people, and because it only makes you more ill. And I always think if you don't forgive people and you don't kind of empathise in a way with them because they're sick, they're not well, it only eats you up. It only eats you up, and I think that's one of the most powerful things, I think, is forgiveness, and just trying to look after yourself in that way.
Yeah. There's a powerful quote around that, whether it's a quote, but it's someone giving you a hot call and you're holding on to that hot call. They've gone, but you've still got all of that hot call. Your forgiveness is just releasing it, but not a lot of us release that hot call. And I don't know who said that.
Yeah,
it's like cutting yourself and expecting them to feel the pain.
That's it.
Like you savage yourself, hating and disliking the world around you, and nothing changes.
Yeah, because they go and live their life.
Yeah,
you know, and you know, again, I'm not dropping quotes here, but you know, there's like, but since we're mentioning quotes, there's a great one around
Craig Gandhi.
Well, so as it, you know, resentment.
Sponsored by Vauxhall.
Listen, I'll take that. Resentment's drink a cup of poison, want someone else to get hurt.
That's
you know,
that's the one.
And that's the key, isn't it? And that's what rehab allowed me to see what I was, and come acceptance of what I was. You know, rather than what you know, I thought I was. A lot of insanity in my life, you know, and it was, you know, so I started to find mechanisms and ways of communicating, you know, and then I started to find some self-love. You know, and then I started to find forgiveness in myself, and then, you know, managing that guilt and shame, which haunts me to this day. But it's but I can manage it better today, a lot better. But it gave me. I had to be removed from society for 12 weeks, and when I graduated, is the term that they use. You know, it was one of the first times in my life that I'd finished something. Even though I fought my way through it, because what happens is you're you know, everything you've been fighting against, you know, and someone sat me down and said, Craig, stop fighting, just surrender.
Just surrender.
Yeah, and
I graduated makes sense to me. You've basically studied yourself and your own stuff.
It's like a degree in yourself, isn't it?
Yeah. Honestly, like you see so many when you get trained in all these things, like some of the things we've talked about, you just start to see it everywhere, don't you? People walking around on autopilot, just reacting to everything rather than responding, like taking just a minute to just process what someone's saying, see where they're coming from. The map is not the territory, all that stuff. Like we all have our own maps. That's not what the territory. You know, we think that everyone thinks like us, has the same values and all that. It's just not that way, is it? I mean, it's fantastic to see you now. And this is only like what 9 years ago. In September.
8.5 years. So yeah, so it's been a great journey. Yeah.
Well, this guy, you sat opposite me now. We've got this sort of slightly Jurgen Klopp vibe going on with your glasses, and I want to put a cap on you. Just don't leave Middlesbrough yet, all right? 'Cause it's, But it's like if we were to meet, and I didn't know, it's easy for our own filters to make judgments, and that's what we do. That's what our brains are trained to do, aren't they? As well. And so, yeah, on the face value, and even chatting to you 5 minutes, we would never know any of this stuff as well. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
That's a very strong sign and a very strong message to the fact that, like, people can go at the depths of difficulty and come back flying, basically. And how important is that? A lot of people who, and you are, Deputy Director of MFC Foundation, doing fantastic. Well done. Genuinely, like, we're so happy for you, to see you come from that. That's how I feel like quite strongly.
So where you're at now, Craig?
Yeah, this is it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Is like, where are you right now? And can I ask you? Because I always ask people this, because I'm a massive advocate for this
area. Do 4
area.
questions at once. Go on, really late on.
I know, I really do it, don't I?
Go on, I'm kidding.
I do this a lot.
See if he graduates from.
I love, like I love Teesside.
Yeah.
And it has its faults like everywhere, and people just see the town centre, they just see the deprived areas, they see the deprivation and the crime. But I mean, look at where we're sat today. The greenery, the hill. I walk regularly around here with my dog just if I'm doing a short walk, but there's yon side of them trees, there's a beck that has kingfishers, there's deer, it's a stone's throw away from everything. And so when you said you've landed in Teesside, that really warms me, because this area needs people like you, and it needs strong advocates, and you're in a position using the football club where you can influence that on people from my area. And I find that, like, I'm thankful for that people from, like yourself, from different areas come and land here. And everyone I speak to always says, I love it here. So that's what I want to get into.
Yeah. Well, so just for the last 8 years, I've been on a journey. It's taken me from Edinburgh to London, and then London back to Edinburgh again, and now I'm in Teesside. But everything on that journey, as I said, I played for Scotland at Homeless World Cup, which ironically is like, it's 1 year it's Rio, next year it's Melbourne. That year it was Glasgow.
Didn't even get a trip away.
But the most amazing thing is
my family.
I know, but my family was able to see that, and for the first time, I think in my adult life, I remember them being proud of me, and I'm sure they were at other times, but it was the first memory I had. Just incidentally, I just want to say we beat England 4-2 in the and doesn't happen that often, but we'll take anyone. And then I was really fortunate the following years to coach in Oslo, and then I managed in Mexico and Cardiff, and and last year I went full cycle, and I coached the Scotland team in Sacramento in California at the Homeless World Cup, and it's been a wonderful journey, and street soccer have been part of that. David Duke. Andy Hook, Ali Dawson, unfortunately Ali passed away a couple of years ago, was my coach and mentor with Team Scotland. Ali was one of the youngest, he was the youngest Rangers captain ever to lift a Scottish Cup. He had like great stories, used to nutmeg Johan Cruyff and and all these sort of stuff. He had great stories, and he's so he was these people have been really important. So the reason why I'm saying that is this is none about me. This is about other people that have got me here, right? So I am eternally grateful for these people. They bought me clothes when I had no clothes. They fed me when I was hungry. They put a roof over my head when I needed it. So these are the people that have got me here, right? So people and relationships are critical to me. And then I landed. So I'm back in Edinburgh, and I just felt that I had another adventure in me. I'm 2 years off 50. I'm like, but I'm 8 years. I spoke to somebody about this recently. I've had the opportunity in life to have 2 lives, right? So a lot of people get that.
Yeah.
So I've had in one lifetime I've had 2 lives, and so I was like, I'm going to try something different. I saw the job, thought I'll never get that. Go for it, got it. Got the phone call driving home, and I was like, oh no, I'm going to make a choice here. And then when I came, instantly I felt something. When I walked through the doors. Even during the interview process, it was so professional, it was so well done. I met so many different people, senior leadership team. I went to the Helen Show, I was at the stadium for the second interview, met some of the board. I just felt something was really important. You know, Lindsay, the head of the foundation, obviously, you know, during that process, just I kind of thought, I want to work for her. You know, there's something about here that her that I really want to, you know, work for. And, you know, I was really excited by that opportunity. And then I came in and very quickly, if you got to think about it, I've been a bit of a nomad for the last 8 years. My heart's never sat, you know, and all of a sudden, you know, I started to feel happy. And I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You know, and then I love the work. You know, I believe what my journey's been is to give me the purpose today to pursue and create positive change through the game, or positive change through, you know, sport or whatever it might be. The reason why I've experienced that stuff. And as soon as I landed, I just, you know, in the area, everyone just made me feel really welcome. Everyone was really genuine, authentic. There's a toughness around the area which I really respect, but there's also such a kind-heartedness around it. And I don't know if, you know, I'd spent a lot of years in London. London can be good and bad, but, you know, it just reminded me of Glasgow. Glasgow I ran away from. I set Glasgow on fire and ran away, right? That was my life, you know, and I came here and I've had an opportunity with like-minded people, good people to feel at home, and very quickly I kind of felt really at home, you know, and the work I fully believe in, you know, absolutely believe in. And we've got quite a unique relationship with the club and the foundation, where we're really connected and we're trying to do things together within the community to make, you know, as I said, these positive change or improve the life choices of the people that we serve. And that's the key. You know, I've been given an opportunity to serve this community, and that's what I believe my purpose is. So, yeah, my heart's here, and I firmly believe that this is home. So it's really weird even saying that, you know, because it's like, why would that be the case, you know? But I've got to follow my gut instinct, you know, and this is ironically, you know, the last number of months, you know, I've been spending a bit more time connected with the people in Glasgow and Edinburgh and London, you know, but the more I see it, I see this is where I'm meant to be. So I've got to just allow, you know, that to happen. You know, what I've learned over the last year, number of years, is don't make any plans. Just let things happen naturally. So over the last 8 years, as I said, you know, who thought this time last year when I was about to leave London, who would have thought that I'd be sitting here on a Sunday morning and you know doing this in Middlesbrough with great guys that are trying to do the same as I am, you know, and it's really, I'm really fortunate. I feel really blessed. I feel really privileged. I feel really honoured to be part of what I'm doing, you know, but fundamentally, you know, I was at the game yesterday, which wasn't a great game, was it? You know, but the sense of, you know, community within the area, you know, the passion that's linked to that club is quite unique, you know. I'm a big Celtic fan, and, you know, that club was originated through core values with, you know, Brother Wilfred and, you know, feeding the Irish in the city and, you know, making sure that people were looked after. And so my football club culture and purpose was believing that I can see that here. And that's, so my responsibility today is to, you know, is try to provoke that change, to inspire that community, you know, to make people feel hopeful, you know, to build really positive relationships. And yeah, we've got an anchor institution, we've got the power of the brand, but it's all about people.
Yeah.
It's all about people, and we're really blessed in the foundation and what the people I've met in the club is, you know, that we're all in it together.
Can I ask what's your? You mentioned that you don't really make plans, which is quite a strong statement, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know a bit more about that. But generally, what do you do that helps you maintain your mental strength and your well-being? So I do a number of different things, kind of spiritually, you know, as well as physically, you know. So I meditate of a morning, and I'm part of a programme which, again, is meant to be anonymous, so I don't want to say too much about it. But you know what I'm talking about when I'm saying it. Is that, you know, I connect to something on a daily basis that, you know, because my decisions took me to, you know, where my decisions took me. So I try and connect with something spiritual, and you know, but then I meditate, and when I meditate, things that happen during that meditation tell me how I should be living that life. You know, let that time for your brain to do the
work. So what pops in, you know, is what I should be acting on, and you know, and today, so I've got a little gut instinct around these sort of things, and I try and follow that. And then during the course of the day, I try and be the best person I possibly can. I try and be kind. I try and serve. You mentioned the word kind earlier. You know, it's about love, kindness, compassion. You know, that's my code. And then over an evening, I reflect, and I do a reflection period where I look at, you know, maybe who I need to apologise to for doing something, where I was arrogant, where I was egotistical, you know, where I was angry, where I was frustrated, and then what I do is and some days are great, you know, and I think, oh, I've had a really positive day, and then the other days I'm like, God, Craig, you need to go and make amends tomorrow. So the next process will be, you know, someone said to me yesterday, you apologise a lot, and I was like, well, I do a lot of things that I should apologise for, but some people don't see that. I think in society, you know, it's people trying to be, oh, I'm not going to apologise, it shows weakness, it shows this, whereas
strength.
But if I do something, I just say sorry. It's that simple.
But the culture of football, I mean, you mentioned earlier on how it was different, how it's more holistic today and so on, but it's still quite cutthroat.
Absolutely.
When we talked about female football, it's still very male, obviously it's very male dominated, masculine and so on. Do you find yourself in situations in this job, or you know, since you've found this new space, where you've actually it's contradicted your own values, and you've had to kind of like, you've been in some tricky situations because, and you're high up as well. So and I don't know how else to put it other than research tells us there's a lot of psychopaths at the highest level. Not suggesting anything, but
wow.
Listen,
That's a second offence. The first one was Klopp. Klopp doesn't wear glasses now.
He's a psychopathic Klopp.
Right, hang on a second. Who
drives a Corsa.
Oh my God.
The poor lad.
Oh my God. Often I'm saying things without any context.
Do you need to breathe the Rich?
It's a case of being able to make, like, so for example, it's use the word psychopath. It's people who can make decisions, often at a high business level, without any consideration for the impact, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm digging my way out. But it's basically that context. I listened to a podcast about it before, and I was like, right, okay. But it does say, like, people, you need those people, these people like surgeons and so on, but when you've got that kind of ethos as well, it's not always that common in, let's say, the business world. And so I'm wondering how that interaction has worked out, if there's ever been any...
Just do everything with compassion.
Yeah.
That's it. Keep it simple. You know, why do you need to be hard?
Right.
Why do you need to be harsh? You know, I don't see the purpose of it. Be kind, be compassionate. That doesn't, but love comes in many forms.
Yeah.
You know, and you could be tough love. It could be tough love.
Definitely.
You know, but I think, you know, it's like, think about it. Out here today, you know, weather permitting, you know, there'll be hundreds of kids playing football. If they do something wrong, they know. Yeah. Right? By compounding that and shouting and screaming at them doesn't help them.
That's it.
I believe in guided discovery. I believe in compassion. I believe, you know, I'm not. Empathy is a word that, you know, I'm not. You know, I'm still kind of working out what that means. But, you know, compassion is a thing that I look at. Yes, I have to make difficult decisions. Yeah, but there's things that I will do and I'll continue to do that have to be clear of conscience and fit into my values. So if I have to, for example, make a difficult decision over a staff member, then I think about it, I pause, you know, I consider it, and then I'll make that decision, but with their best interest and the business best interest at heart, and I'll do it in a way which is compassionate, which gives them a solution. Yeah. But it goes back to what we spoke about. If I didn't get into rehab, if no one told me what I was, and no one allowed me to understand what I was, I'd still be that person. Yeah. So rigorous honesty is really crucial. People might not want to hear it, right? But if I've got to tell someone something that they don't want to hear, I'll do it in the best way I possibly can. What's the point? Listen, you know, there's no point in. I don't believe in confrontation or aggression and, you know, all these sort of things. It doesn't work. You know, it doesn't work, and that's where. You know, this kind of holistic person-centered approach is crucial, because that's where you get high performance. I mean, people feel, get back to Maslow, innit, hierarchy stuff, and, you know, safety, security, you know, to drive it right through to the pinnacle of love. You know, it's got to be done in the right way. But what's happened in my life is people have been honest with me, but they've been honest with me, and then I've built more trust with them. Yeah. You know, because I'm like they actually care.
So that's what I mean. This compassionate leadership thing. It's like there's a lot more of it about I see now as well. And obviously I work in the public sector, and like within local authority, they're getting squashed by by the main government with funding and all this stuff, and difficult decisions get to. But what I can't stand is the BS that comes with it. So it's like, oh well, you know, it's like necessary, blah blah. And it's actually, well, let's just say it like it is. And actually, sometimes that tough love is what people need to hear. But it seems like the old school way. I think people are waking up, even at whatever decision making level is needed, to wake up to that kind of compassionate leadership. It doesn't, and you've said it exactly as I would. I mean, I would agree with you completely. It doesn't have to be that way. You can do it basically in a nicer way, and it's like that's something which is needed.
Yeah, but if but sometimes these difficult discussions are needed, because, and in a way, it's like you might be preventing someone reaching where they're meant to go. I believe in determinism. I believe in determinism. You're going to end up. You're going to end up. So whatever discussion I have with them, they're going to end up where they're going to end up. But if I can help them on the way, just regarding even the people that we serve in the community. Really encourage that kind of radical candor stuff around that, where it's, if we're not transparent, then what we're doing is, are we doing them a service? Are we actually, in a sort of way, being dishonest? So the more honest we are with people, in a compassionate way, because sometimes I know I can be quite direct, but I think if people understand me, they'll understand where it comes from the heart.
Bad news delivered well with compassion. It then puts the trust in the person to be able to make their decision. How can you make good decisions if you don't know the truth around you? Yeah. Basically, and that goes back to that example you mentioned about your father earlier on. About your mother when and not being told the truth about bereavement and so on, actually wanting to know. And it seems like everything points towards being as open as you possibly can. Delivered at the right level to whatever age that child is.
But even we're talking about generations now, it's different, isn't it? Like we want to encourage people, like this opportunity for us to talk about today. Some people will probably say, Craig, why are you so open about these things? And it's like, it's my responsibility to be open about it. Some people will never understand that, and if it holds me back, if people hold or judge me on this, it's on them, right? Exactly.
Craig, I used to work with someone who I don't know, that came out my circle quite quickly after this comment, but when we started to do this, the podcast and stuff, she said to me, and a male colleague of mine nodded and agreed, so he's now out the circle. She said, Matt, I've seen them podcasts you do, like, it's quite egotistical, isn't it? Like, you're putting yourself on social media and, like, talking how open you are about, like, your struggles and stuff. Do you think you're just doing it for yourself and your own ego? And I think it's an amazing thing that when you open up and you are honest about how you are because you genuinely want to help people. Like, my Instagram account is Matt trying to help. Like, that's all I've ever wanted to do with this and with my new role with yourselves. Like, I don't want to be seen to be walking around in a Middlesbrough tracksuit like, oh, look at it. I want to use that to help young people in my area. But people's perceptions of what you're trying to do is incredible. And when people are saying to you, why are you so open? It's like, well, you might learn something.
Yeah. What's wrong with giving? I mean, altruism, the nature of giving without receiving anything back I think is an impossible thing. When you give, and it's received in a positive way, and especially, the motivation to see people grow, be empowered, particularly reach beyond what they thought they were capable of, and grow from that is just a beautiful thing. Yeah. And I think if you would just go, I walk away from moments like that feeling really good about myself. Yeah, it's not an ego thing. It's like,
I know, but the time,
I'm really pleased that we had that conversation.
You think
that we could have it?
Yeah, but
people will always judge it. That's the thing, but this is where depends on what you believe in, right? And I think we're shaped and we're given experiences in life to allow us to have a certain perspective, and we've been blessed with that. And it gives us a really clear perspective on what our purpose is. Some people just not have been lucky enough to have that.
So the lived experience thing, can I ask you a question just to wrap this up, which is about what advice you would give about mental strength to others. And we were doing an interview earlier on this week where it was discussed about the evidence being very strong about lived experience going into schools isn't very effective because, and it's brain development, basically. And as a teenager, I would have hated hearing that. Oh, your brain's not developed enough to accept this understanding of consequences of your actions, because it's said that teenagers will basically think that they'll look at you and hear about your experience and think, well, I wouldn't be in that.
They'll take the negative from it.
Yeah, right. I'll take the negative, but think, well, I could cope with that. So they're not ready. So that's one thing. But actually, what would generally right across the life course, and what would you say is the best advice you could give to others, mental strength, particularly those who might experience some of the things?
Yeah, I think as I think I alluded to at the start, I am no expert to give advice, you know, and one thing I've learned is it's about action. So allow people to see the action that you take, and hopefully that will resonate. Words, we can all sit here and talk, and you know, and that's what I've done for years, was just talk. I'm going to change, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be this, I'm going to etc. And I've never done it, you know. But as soon as I put some action in, my life changed. So my encouragement would be, you know, without, you know, trying to feel I can give advice, how I encourage people is stick with the winners. You know, look at the people who, you know, succeed in life, and look at the clues that leaves. Brilliant. Follow that path.
And find your own way, because what works for everyone is different, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's what I mean about advice. It's all recycled crap, isn't it? Until it actually comes down to finding what works for you. Take action. Brilliant. Wrap it up there.
Yep, Craig. Pleasure. Thank
Amazing.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.